Toledo, I'm going to Iowa, land of the giant bucks. That's right, I am heading west on a road trip adventure all the way from New York to Iowa to go see my buddy Sean and go hopefully kill some big old deer. I hope you'll stay tuned and join me on this bow hunting road trip. It is sure to be quite the adventure. This is my morning face, so prepare yourself. Good morning, guys. This is your host, Andrew Penzi from Vital Point. I am at a rest area in Davenport, Iowa, which is right on the border of Illinois. And I decided to just crash here for the night and get some Z's in. It's just about maybe 2.5 hour or 3 hour drive in from here. So piece of cake. For the evening, this was my camping setup. I hung my shirts and jackets in the windows just to kind of black everything out. And I threw my Sitka gear on top of my sleeping bag because it was cold last night. My face and head were numb till I finally pulled them right into the sleeping bag. Let's go! So this is one of the fields I'm looking at hunting some morning. It's hay. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, so I wanted to come scout it out real quick, just take a quick look. Pretty good right here. There's a rub right here. That's a good sign. I like that. All right, guys, let me lay out the situation for you. I am here. I made it. I'm so psyched to be in Iowa. I am just gonna get dressed and jump in the woods. It's about noon, so I have all afternoon to hunt. It's gonna be awesome. I am going today to, there's a bean field, and the beans look like they're all still standing, which is great. And I'm gonna walk in on the bean field actually, and then there are slopes that go up from the bean field. So there's some draws and a couple of ridges that all sort of converge. I'm going in totally blind here. So, you know, I'm just gonna see what I could find. Try not to push too deep to bump things out, but hopefully catch the deer that wanna come back to those beans and catch them like staging up before they get in there maybe. Now Iowa, you know, I think I might've said it before, it's land of the giants, right? We all know that. It's hard to get in here. I've been trying for like 5 years or something like that. It's been taking me to get here. Finally here, and obviously I want to get a nice big buck, but I gotta tell you, I'm having a great time. Even if I don't, I'm already having a great time. Just to see my buddy Sean is gonna be great, and to you know, just to get to hunt here. You gotta enjoy the journey, right? It was a great drive out here, beautiful drive. I got great weather, so that's my disclaimer. In case I don't get a big buck, I'm still having a good time. Don't worry about it. Now, I've been really wrestling with how big of a deer is big enough. You know, once you go through all this effort to come to a place like this and all the expense and everything, you don't want to go home with a little button buck, you know? That is not the goal here. So really, it's go big or go home. I am looking for something pretty big or bigger than certainly bigger than I would normally have an opportunity at near home. So I'm gonna try to let anything young walk by, anything small walk by. I am not shooting an arrow unless it really, you know, gets my blood pumping. Let's go get one. Found this massive rub on the way in, which really got my heart pumping. This thing was huge. But you gotta watch which trees you go in around here, because a lot of the trees were ring cut from the Forest Service. So you just gotta be careful which trees you choose. These turkeys were keeping me company most of the afternoon. They were all over. This is the spot to go for turkeys, that's for sure. But no deer activity until it got dusk. And then right at dusk, I had deer running down both sides of the ridge next to me. It looked like mostly does, a couple of young bucks, nothing that I'd want to take a shot at. As I was about to climb down, this little basket rat came right under me and was hanging out with me the whole time, just while I was climbing down the tree. It was kind of cool. He was not affected by the light in his face at all. Yep, that is my GoPro, which I left up in the tree last night. I gotta go climb up and retrieve it. I was on an amazing trail though here, and this is right where that 2.5-year-old buck or so came down It's a beat-in trail. It was a good spot. The following evening, I went to this spot where I had to cross this little stream, and I actually thought that might keep some of the other hunters away. Turns out there was one other guy in there with me at least, but this deer trails through here were really just unbelievable coming from the stream. There's some bean fields on the other side of the stream that they were crossing to get to, and it was just beat down trails all over the place. Even up from the stand here, you could see the trails that were coming across. And I was pretty excited about this spot. I thought for sure I was going to see something good. I had a bunch of young doe and bucks hanging out with me throughout the whole afternoon, but I kept hearing something making some rubs and scrapes just a little bit out of range, maybe 50 yards away. And as it got later in the evening, I started hearing like the most amazing buck roar I've ever heard before. I don't even know if you can call it a roar. It was like a bark. I mean, this thing was so loud, I was questioning if it was even a deer at first, but I sort of confirmed to myself that it was a deer. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it on video, the sound, but it was really amazingly loud, and I think there was a monster in there, and he was just waiting until dark to come around. Well, I just sliced up my finger real good. You see that? And can't find the darn first aid kit. And this is, you know, when you got a car that looks like this, all jam-packed. Lesson learned, keep the first aid kit handy. Because now I'm like having to pull out everything in my car when I should be hunting to try to find a darn first aid kit. Now, I made a stupid mistake, and here's another lesson learned. I have this pruner that I carry, just for like, you know, little twigs and stuff when I'm climbing. And I had put the pruner in my bag yesterday. Usually I have it in a case. But I remembered I put it in the bag. I'm like, all right, I got to get that pruner out of the bag this morning and put it back in the, you know, pouch so I don't get cut. So what do? I reach in the bag to try to find the darn pruner. Stupid. It found me before I found it. I can't believe it. And I knew it was in there. So now I gotta keep pulling out everything out of this car to try to find a first aid kit so that I could salvage what's left of the morning. What a pain. Here's hunting for you. So much for the first aid kit. I can't find that thing anywhere. And I'm sick of pulling the car apart looking for it. So I put a big piece of tape on it. For the time being. Of course, it's on my trigger finger, so hopefully that doesn't impact things later, but it's a beautiful morning at least, and I got to get in there. I can't sacrifice this day. I was stuck here the whole time. Oh my gosh, I took forever. I gotta keep moving. My legs are shaking. Well, I'm finally up the tree. That was a pretty nice buck that came by before. I was totally pinned in the tree. I couldn't do anything. I didn't even have my harness rope attached. I just attached it to go around the branch. So that was that. My finger is I'm feeling it. It's not doing too good. It's cold and numb. It's probably not a good sign. I was tempted to actually go to emergency and just get a couple stitches, but I didn't want to waste the morning. And actually, I have a beautiful setup here. I think it's a nice spot. So I think I'm going to try to sit as long as possible today. If I could do an all-day sit, I will. I just mentioned that buck was like directly downwind of me. So I don't know if my wind was going over his back or what. I couldn't figure it out, how he didn't smell me. But I did put a couple drops of buck piss in front of me, because I do have my decoy set up in front of me now. The way the decoy's angled and the way he was coming, he probably didn't even see the decoy because it was like behind this big tree I'm in. Now, unfortunately, I was bleeding out in the tree, so I had to climb down to find the nearest urgent care facility, which was an hour and a half away. So it really ended up killing all my day. I had to go get my hand taken care of. 5 stitches and a tetanus shot later, I'm back up the tree, just in time for sunset. So there's this guy who apparently knows a lot about YouTube. His name is Algorithm, that's his name. And apparently he says that in order to get a lot of views and do well on YouTube, you need to get some thumbs ups and some comments and subscriptions, things like that. So for Al's sake, you know, we'd appreciate it if you could just hit that thumbs up button. It'll help everyone out. And let me know in the comments, have you guys ever participated in an out-of-state hunt? Have you been to Iowa? Let's get the chat going. These cows are very funny. They were all sleeping, but then I stopped for a second and they all start coming over to see what's going on. The whole herd is coming over. They crack me up. Hey guys, what's going on? Hey! Next day, and I am back at it here with another decoy setup, and this was a very productive spot for me. It had a lot going on. I was at the top of a draw. There was a nice bench going out on each side. Just a beautiful setup. So I hear major chasing going on behind me. I'm getting all excited, but sure enough, it's downwind, so they got a little wind of me. So this doe is coming in real cautious. She knew something was up, and I could hear the buck behind her. I could hear him grunting like crazy. Didn't quite see him yet, but I knew he was back there somewhere. Now you can see the buck comes in at the top of the screen in the back finally. I finally get a look at him, and I'm just hoping that they're both going to just keep easing forward. Now the buck is only about 40 yards away, but I have no shot at him. And the doe is stomping like crazy, but she just keeps easing forward. So she comes in to about 15 yards here, and I'm like, oh, if she just keeps on moving past me, maybe he'll just kind of come by as well and give me a shot. But she's staying firm there, 15 yards. And the buck was kind of funny. He was kind of like telling the doe, yeah, you go ahead, check it out, make sure it looks good. They are smart like that. Man, he just hung back there and let her go first. So eventually she kind of gets wind that something is not right here and decides to turn around, and my heart sinks when she does that and starts heading the other way. And sure enough, she takes off and the buck takes off right after her. He was a beauty. Iowa rut, baby, Iowa rut. Another huge flock of turkeys came through as I was eating my lunch. They entertained me. Lunchtime. Homemade chili, venison chili. I hunted the deer, I processed the deer, I cooked the deer, and I canned the deer. And now I'm eating the deer. And I'm gonna catch another one. After lunch, I started seeing a lot of activity. Things were really picking up, starting off with this young buck that came through. He was a decent deer, but not quite what I was looking for, so I let him pass at 20 yards.
After that, I had a couple doe come through, and man, anytime you see a doe in mid-November during the rut, you know, your heart starts beating because you know there could be a buck behind it. And again, I was tempted to just shoot this doe and leave her in front of me for a while, hoping that there'd be a buck, but nothing was following this particular one. Shortly after that, things got kind of crazy real quick when a hot doe came in to my left, and she was running back and forth out there, and she had two bucks hot on her tail. One of them was a pretty decent looking buck, at least 3.5-year-old, maybe even 4.5-year-old. I never got a great look at his antlers. He just always had his head down, was always moving, so I was having a hard time focusing in on him. He looked like he might have had a broken tine or two, but he looked like a big buck. And again, he was just following her every move. She went about 100 yards out, turned around and came back, and he was following her. They all hit a couple little scrapes that were over there. And then also there was this, what I would say is like a 2.5-year-old buck came through after him, and he stayed back a little bit behind the bigger one. Now they were all running circles out there around each other for quite a while, but then after my second grunt sequence, they turned and started heading my way. That doe hung out there for a little while, and then eventually she cut down that draw in front of me. And the big guy was hot on her heels, but unfortunately he took a little bit of a shortcut and went directly down the draw without coming through my shooting lane. This little guy was hanging out for a while. He didn't know what to do. He was like, crap, the big one's got the doe. What do I do now? And he was hanging out there. You can see he's like hyperventilating, thinking about it. He's all stressed out. But eventually he decides, what the hell do I have to lose? I'm going to try to get that doe. About 10 minutes later, I have another big shooter come through. He is following the same exact trail as those other 3 deer that came through. Again, I don't have any great footage of him, but I did actually fling 2 arrows at this guy as he ran through the shooting lane. It was kind of a joke. The first one was just way behind him. I couldn't get him to stop. And the second one, my elbow was hitting the tree, as you will see. This guy didn't even know he was being shot at. He just had a one-track mind and was hot on that trail until I finally yelled at him about 40 yards away. The location he stopped was right in line with this tree. I just could not get my elbow drawn back, and I could not come to full draw. I was at like 3/4 draw here. It was so uncomfortable. But I sent the arrow and I watched in disgust as it completely missed. No surprise there. He ran off after those other deer down the draw.
Oh my gosh, when he finally stopped, my elbow was hitting the tree behind me. And I didn't have enough room to draw. I had no room to move. I just couldn't get a clear spot, situate my arm. Hunting's not easy, man. And he just didn't stop in an ideal spot either. The first shot was just a joke. He was still moving. It was like a panic shot. I didn't even have him in my sights. It was stupid. I didn't even notice. Who knows where those arrows are? Buried under the leaves. Quick lesson. This is why you don't pick a tree that angles forward a little bit, you know, that pushes you to the edge of your seat, because you don't have the room to draw back. That killed me just now. I thought I had room this way. I have room this way. But this angle, I couldn't do it. Lesson learned. What a morning that was. Boy, I had a lot of action. First, there was that hot doe that came running around, and she had 2 bucks trailing her right on her tail. One looks like a 3.5-year-old, and then she also had a 2.5-year-old. The 2.5-year-old was kind of funny because he was just sort of trailing behind. He knew he was screwed, that the 3.5-year-old had first dibs, but he was like, I'm going anyway. I'm going to follow her. So he just kept following a little bit ways behind him. And then, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes after that, a real nice buck came through. It looked like definitely a shooter. I was planning to shoot him. And it's amazing how he followed the same track, and you can see he lost it for a little bit, then all of a sudden he picked it up again, and he was running on that track. But every one of those deer stopped over on this path, and there's 3 little tiny scrapes, but every one of those deer hit those 3 little scrapes. So I took Sean and Jason's advice, and I just moved my setup over about 40 yards or so from where I was, just to be able to get on those scrapes. I just made a bunch of noise resetting, because I hate these shagbark trees, man. These are the worst. Oh my gosh, if you could avoid these trees, avoid them at all costs. They make so much noise. But I'm finally settled, and I got pretty good cover. There's like 3 trunks right here, that one, this one, and there's one in front. As long as they don't get in the way of the bow again, I should be good. But this tree, I think I'll have a little bit more room. Got a long afternoon ahead of me. It's still early, it's still morning. I don't know what time it is. It's the rut, you never know. Sean got a real nice buck hunting public land the other night with me. And he's at his property again today on his 10 acres there, trying to get his landowner tag filled. So hopefully he gets some good action there. Here I am in Iowa with the world famous
What's up?
Sean McVay.
What's up, Andrew Penzi from Vital Point? I'm so happy to have you here in Iowa to experience the Iowa rut.
How cool is this? Hanging with Sean McVay from Sean's Outdoor Adventures.
This is very cool.
Hunting the Iowa rut. I mean, we've been talking about this for 5 years now.
Yep.
And finally came together. Here we are. Sean got an awesome buck the other day. I'll post a picture of that. Yep. And check out his channel to see the video. The hunt of that was an awesome hunt.
I forgot to link your channel.
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
I will do that when I get home.
But, so check that out. And now it's my turn. And I'm trying hard. I had a couple close encounters, but...
Are you going to show the footage from today?
Absolutely.
So you guys already know what happened? Or
yeah, I guess so. You'll see.
Depends on when you show this piece and that piece.
Right, I'm probably going to show the whole thing together, but we'll see how this comes together. But meanwhile, we are at a good burger joint. It is time to rest, replenish, and nourish our bodies.
Amen. I'm going to get a burger.
Let's do it.
Next morning, I had a big shooter buck run right up to me as I was walking in the dark in the morning. He just must have thought I was another deer in the dark there. So I went ahead and made a setup over a scrape, but the only thing I saw was this little young buck, I think it was, walking around. It was really thick. I had a hard time setting up. It was all poison ivy. It was kind of a nightmare setup. That's the difficulty of going in blind, but at least this guy did stop at that scrape and followed the plan. New spot that evening, had great action.
Mark. stopped, but he was a little smaller than I wanted to shoot anyway. But good action. They were running right to me. It got my heart going. When they are racing like that, there is no stopping them. The meh thing just does not work. You need an air horn. Oh my gosh, look at this weather coming in. I'm gonna have to get the heck out of here soon. This does not look good. It was an exciting night so far. I saw 3 different does and 3 bucks already. They were all a little younger than I would have liked. But boy, it's like 20 minutes till sunset. I'd like to hang out, but we got these major storms coming in that look pretty scary. And my friend who's a little further north said he's getting poured on and the sky is black. So I really don't want to be this high up a tree when that comes and hits. So unfortunately I gotta cut this night a little short. Oh man, it's always an adventure. I gotta make like a tree and leave. I had just put the camera away and another buck came running down the left side of the trail. But I'll tell you, there was no stopping those things. I tried to grunt stop, but I wasn't going to shoot it anyway. They're all about the same size. I haven't seen anything really big in here, but a lot of activity. And I don't know if he was chasing a doe or not. I couldn't really see. And then climbing down, right when I got on the ground, there's another one running over there too. So that's 5 bucks, I think, I saw today, and at least 3 does. So good action. I have a long walk out of here, so I gotta get out of here. Like I said, before the storms start. It just started raining a little bit, and I'm getting a couple gusts of wind, so it's definitely coming. So let's go. I can't get a break. I set up early this morning. Came in here. It's a good spot, I think. There's a scrape in front of me. It rained hard last night, and I just stepped on my platform. I brought my gear up and rested it on the kind of seat behind me. And I was like about to get set up, and 2 shooter bucks come walking up next to me, like 50 yards over. Just like a little too far. Just moving real slow, moving up. They were grunting a little bit. I grunted back to them. And the first one just kind of kept on going. The second one looked like he thought about coming over here. He was like kind of heading slowly sort of this way. my jacket was resting on the seat behind me. Like I said, I didn't have time to do anything yet. And the jacket fell and just hit the leaves below. And the noise kind of startled him just a little bit. So he didn't like run off or stomp or anything, but he didn't continue this way. He just sort of stood for a little bit and then just real slowly continued the way he was going. I feel like that was my, those are the bucks I came here for, and now they're gone. I feel sick. Now I don't know what to do. Do I stay here all day and hope something else comes up? I gotta be, 400 or 500 yards, probably at least 500 yards at least, from a cut bean field that's down below me. I knew this was gonna be a good ridge. I had a feeling about this one. I'm sick to my stomach right now. That was my chance. I'm running out of time here. And those are two big ones. I would have shot either one in a heartbeat.
I did have a handful of other deer come through. I had this doe, a spike, another young buck came through. Now they all came on the downwind side, which kind of pissed me off and taught me a lesson. It was a really stiff west wind this day, so I purposely set up all the way on the east side of this ridge, so that way I could look over the ridge and nothing would smell me with that west wind since I was on the east side. But unfortunately, these deer hugged the easternmost edge of that ridge. Now, I don't know if they were doing it just to get out of the wind or so that they could smell the wind of anything over the ridge, which kind of worked out for them. But it was a lesson learned that on a stiff wind coming from one side, you need to be all the way on the opposite side of that ridge.
All right, I think I have a rough idea of where those deer were headed. About 300, 400 yards further up, there's an area I had marked on the map as like a vegetation change. It looks like it's maybe some pines or something in there. And it's, I'm thinking maybe they're going up in that area. Those bucks this morning were huge, man. I wish I got them on camera. That first one was just like, he was a monster. It was just awesome. Anyway, running out of time. I hope I can get it done here. Oh my gosh, this is not easy. Come on. When I climbed down, sure enough, I was marking a tree on the trail that those big bucks were on, because I figured maybe I can come back in a day or two and sit on that trail. And while I'm doing that, another buck came down the trail that those two bucks went up. Possible shooter, I would say he was 3.5, but he looked pretty good. I probably would have shot him if I had the opportunity, but he totally caught my movement and stopped at 40 yards out, looking straight at me, and then he turned and ran. Tonight's the night, it's gonna be alright. I moved up the ridge to that area I was talking about, and there is a real thick bedding area, like just like 50 yards that way. Got a stiff wind in my face, west wind, and I have this trail in front of me. I'll show you that I think if they come walk along the trail, from the bedding area, I'd have a great shot.
These birds were all over the place out there. If any of you guys know what type of bird this is, please do me a favor and leave the name in the comment below.
Holy cow. That was scary. There's some crazy wind, man. That big thing, tree right next to me just came down. Holy cow. I was just opening the camera to film this wind because it's so strong. It's like gusting to at least 30 miles an hour or more. I'm rocking and rolling in this tree.
A bunch more turkeys were hanging out back behind me there, and then a young buck followed the plan, came out of the thick area and down the trail right in front.
Today is the day where the Sitka suit earns its money. You gotta be a little crazy to do what we do. Crazy. Holding on for life. I think the deer all slept in this morning. They looked outside and they said, screw that, I'm not going out there. Crazy.
This guy passed me going up the mountain in the morning when I was already up in the tree. I saw him come by in the dark, but I guess he couldn't handle the wind and the cold and the snow and the hail, so he buggered out of there early. A young buck, maybe a 2.5-year-old, ran out in front of me about 50 yards ahead there, and then a short while after him, just a giant came through, and I just couldn't get the camera to focus on him. The autofocus took over. I was having a really hard time seeing him, but he was a beautiful buck, long tines. So since he was on the same trail as the other one, I decided to pack it in and move on over 50 or 60 yards that way.
Okay, I moved over to where those bucks were crossing. Looks really good in here. It's a beautiful bench. Nice gradual spur going down. There's a couple draws come up. It looks phenomenal. Great trails. Hopefully it comes together.
Somehow I dropped my lineman's belt and it got hung up around a branch down there. Oh well.
This trail, right? I was this close to going into a tree 20 yards further over. And if I was in that tree, I would have had a shot. 20 yards, that made the difference. Oh my goodness. Well, it is the last day of my Iowa deer hunting adventure. It has been a rush. Saw a lot of big bucks, just not where I need them to be. Very frustrating. I feel like I'm so close. This morning I did have some chasing going on behind me, and then there was a couple does running around on the hillside across from me, so it's quite a distance off. I will say that grunt tube has not worked at all. The rattles, none of the calls have really been effective. I've tried a little bit of everything on these deer. So the plan for now is I'm going to pack it in. I'm going to meet up with Sean. He's over on his property. We're going to have some lunch because it's the people that make the party, you know? So we're going to touch base, and then I'm probably going to head back to where I was yesterday, where I saw that really beautiful buck. It's just really nice area in there. Last licks tonight. This is it. I started off this morning on the same trail where I saw two beautiful bucks a couple days back. Last time I was set up further up the on top of this ridge here, and they were down on this area. So this time I set up downwind of them over here. It's a west wind, and I am now on the east facing slope, so that's what the deer seem to like to do. They hide out of that wind. They get to smell anything up on the ridge as the wind comes over the top. And that's the way they play the game, and you got to play it too. So this is my bean field. They just cut it a couple days ago before the rain. I've been mostly concentrating on these ridges and draws that go up. It gets higher and higher in elevation as you go back. And honestly, it's kind of emotional leaving it. It was such a grueling 7 days, man. I really put my heart out there and gave it my all. I was really hoping to bring home something. But you know, 5 years in the making, and then just so much effort goes into it. It's a little tough leaving it, I gotta tell you. But my family awaits. You know, I haven't fired many arrows this trip, playing around, so figured let me just make sure I'm still in the zone before tonight. And this hay bale looked like a perfect target, but I just realized why you don't shoot out a hay bale. Sucker went right in there. I gotta see if I can dig it out. If it weren't for the lighted knock, I wouldn't find it. Ladies and gentlemen, I am at the home of Sean McVay. YouTube has apparently not been very good to Sean. It's not really his home. Well, looks like someone's back in here hunting the spot I was heading for the last night. Maybe this guy's seen a couple deer. I'll ask him. So, tonight I ended up seeing one buck when I was walking in right at the spot I was going to. I kicked him up, about a 3-year-old, I would say, 3.5-year-old. And then right in the end there, I had a buck. Same story as this entire hunt. 50 yards, you know, over. He looked like a pretty nice buck, at least a 3.5-year-old. And, you know, the bucks on this trip, they just were non-responsive to any calling. I tried to pull them over, but no such luck. I even put out the decoys tonight, but that didn't seem to bring them over either. Not like a lot of chasing or anything like that this afternoon. I didn't see any rut activity. But, you know, I said from the beginning it was go big or go home. I'm totally okay with all the decisions I made. I'm really happy I didn't settle. Hung it out there looking for that big buck, and it just didn't come together. But I'm okay with that. I had a great time. I got to see a buddy I haven't seen in a long time, and that was great. And, you know, it's not too often you get to experience something like this. Week-long hunting trip, you know, kind of remote here, but I'm looking forward to getting back and seeing the family. And you know, you win some, you lose some, but I have good memories, and it'll last me a lifetime. Now, don't get me wrong, I wish I had a buck. I really do. Would have really made this whole trip much more fulfilling, but hey, that's the game we play. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in and following along. It's been an epic journey, and you know, the story of the trip has been a buck 50 yards away. That's it. Almost every single sit I've seen a buck 50 yards away. It's crazy. And that's a problem with going in blind, you know. It's like you just don't know where exactly those trails are. I put myself in good positions. I was seeing a lot of buck activity, but just couldn't get that close, you know, close enough to seal the deal. That's the type of thing you figure out as you just get to know an area better and better. But this area is going to have to wait for quite a while before I come back here. So it's off to New York, and I got some bucks to kill there. All right, guys, hang on. This trip ain't over yet. I spoke too soon. Look what I just got. Nice buck, huh? Actually, though, a crazy story. I'm heading back from the hunting grounds, and I see the buck on the side of the road. I'm like, whoa, there's a buck right there. It looked like a fresh buck. And sure enough, the car's on the other side that just hit it. So I pulled over. So an officer came, and he's giving me a tag to take the buck. The funny thing is I have a tag. I really could use my tag already that was unused. But, you know, the Lord provides one way or another. And I'm going to take the meat off this thing and take the rack. Actually, one of the antlers broke off, one of the points, but I found it on the road. So I'll glue that sucker back on. And I have a memento from my Iowa trip after all. It's not bad. We got a memento and we got dinner for next week. Not the way I planned for it to go down, but I'll take it. This is your Vital Point host, Andrew Penzi. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Remember, when that big buck walks in front of your shooting lane, always aim for that Vital Point. Catch you guys next time. Mighty Mississippi River. There she is.